this is real fundamental stuff. This is animal husbandry, mostly. If you deal with cattle or pets or almost any other animal, a lot of this is going to apply. I've taken those rules and applied them to beekeeping pretty much, but they transfer real easy. I got chickens and I've got ducks, and they all kind of make the same, they all kind of need the same things. And when I'm dealing with people just starting out with beekeeping, a lot of them don't have that feel. Insects are so alien to what their thinking is that they don't apply the same sorts of rules to insects that they do to their cats or their cattle. So a lot of this, if you've been around animals or bees for a while, is going to be pretty familiar. But I've come up with, I quit at 10 because where do you stop? But number one, if you're going to be a beekeeper, you got to have good queens. Pure and simple, no explanation. It starts there. They have to be, the queens that you have to be raised in luxury, and here's what I mean by raised in luxury. The biggest problem we have, and we're going to get to it, is varroa, without a doubt. But everybody has to contend with varroa. And with varroa come the chemical problems, the wax contamination. We're going to talk about that more. Bees, queens raised in contaminated wax aren't as good as queens raised in clean wax, period. If the queens you are getting are coming from a queen breeder who's routinely treating with any of the hard chemicals, you're going to have a queen that's not as good as a queen that is raised in clean wax, period. So when you're buying queens, find out what they're doing. Ask them. If they say, yeah, I treat routinely with this, this, and this, then you may want to find a different queen breeder. Now, if they're dealing with what I call the soft chemicals or the organic acids, it's a different story. If they're using essential oils or they're using formic or they're using oxalic, it's a different story because you're not going to have contaminated wax. But if they're using the hard chemicals, even some of the soft chemicals, try and find somebody that isn't. Raised in luxury, extremely well mated. Big problem this year is swarm queens can't fly because it's rained. Rained. And they're not getting mated. But what about where you're getting your queens? What was it doing the first week in April in Georgia when your queens were getting mated to send up here in those packages that you bought? How do you know? Weather Channel on your phone. When you know your queens are going to be arriving on this week, back it up a month and take a look at the weather. What's the weather been doing down there? Because the best queen raised in the best place in the world, if she doesn't get mated, isn't going to do you any good at all. So have an idea, ask the breeder what the weather's been, and sometimes you don't get a chance. You go to some guy's house and he's got 400 packages and you pick it up and you don't have a clue and he doesn't have a clue. But at least find out where they came from. If you can find out where they came from, you can have an idea of what to expect from that queen on how well she was mated. Healthy beyond belief. That goes, same thing, is where did she come from? Was where she come from a good place to be? And what are you putting her into? What's your box like? Is your box, if you got 3-4-year-old comb in there, her days are numbered, pure and simple. And it's your job to make sure that when you get her, that's where she goes. She goes into the best place in the world. She needs every opportunity to excel, and it's your job to make sure that she does. An egg-laying machine. You need a big population. It takes a lot of bees to make a lot of honey, right? You got to have a lot of bees. How do you get a lot of bees? You got to have a lot of eggs. How many eggs per day does a queen lay? How do you know? Because the book said so? Because that guy in a magazine said so? How do you know eggs per day? Here's how you know. Sealed brood. You can see the numbers. How many square inches are on a deep frame? You measure the sealed brood. And it's real easy to take a piece of plexiglass or a piece of something and mark off square inches and hold it up to that frame and say, that's about 27, that's about 4, that's about 9. And you mark them down and you add them up. And you get square inches of sealed brood. Multiply it by 25 because there's 25 cells per square inch. Divide that number by 12, eggs per day. That sealed brood may have been sealed this morning. It may have been sealed 11 3/4 days ago, but it's still a 12-day period of sealed brood. That's how many days, that's how many eggs she laid divided by 12 in one day. Then you'll know, and you'll find out that the books are wrong. Trust me. The guy who did most of this work up in Canada, he found a couple of queens that were doing about 2,400 a day. He said they were exceptional. He said 15, 16. That's what you're going to see. 15, 16. At 2,000, I mean, I think somebody made it up. They just guessed. I don't know. But if you figure 2,000, you're not going to be too far wrong. But if your queen is at 1,100, because you actually went out and counted one time, you got a queen that isn't doing what she should be doing, right? Or could be doing better. Why isn't she? Is she old? Is she in a bad, does she not have enough help? You know, not enough workers? Whatever it is, you need a queen in there. It's an egg-laying machine, and 1,100 a day ain't quite it. So take a look at how many eggs per day. Good genetics. Adapted to your location. And here's a problem. Unless you've got a 15th generation Albion, Michigan queen that's been raised here, you probably don't have a bee that was raised to be here. There's room. Come on in. Because they come from Georgia, they come from California. Maybe they came from Michigan. Maybe there's somebody locally, then that's a way better choice. But getting queens adapted to your location is tough to do. And generally, bees that are grown in Georgia do okay up here. But I can tell you that the third generation queen that come from my part of Ohio does a lot better in Ohio than that queen. And I've done it again and again and again. So if you can find a queen that's adapted to your location, that's your first choice. Generally it isn't, but keep looking or do it yourself. There's the challenge. Why aren't you raising your own queens? Suitable to your management? Here's my problem with keeping bees. I'm not at home this weekend. I'm here. And I'm here or somewhere else a lot. Whoops, wrong way. I'm here somewhere else a lot in the spring. I'm not doing in April what I should be doing because I'm on the road someplace. I'm not doing in May what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm on the road someplace. So if I have queens that get up really early in the spring, like Carniolans, boom, they're ready to go. And I'm not there, they're in the trees. Russians, on the other hand, like to sleep in, just like I do. They're not ready until late May. They don't even think about spring until almost half of spring is gone, just like I do. So when I say, suitable to your management, that's the kind of bee I'm looking for. I don't want to try and make my bee live by my lifestyle because my bee ain't going to do it. They're going to do what they're going to do. So I'm going to find a bee that does what I do, and then we're going to get along a whole lot better. So if you're antsy in the spring, you want somebody that wakes up early and you're out there in snowshoes because I got to keep bees, then get bees that wake up early. But if you're like me and you're not there all spring, get bees that sleep in. You're going to have a lot more fun, and you're going to do a lot better if you do that. Resistant to common problems, that kind of goes without saying. It's a lot like being adapted. Resistant to a varroa. Is there a bee that's resistant to varroa? Russians to a degree, more than any others that I know. And that's another reason that I like them. But there are hygienic bees, and they do better than bees that aren't hygienic. So if you're looking for something that deals somewhat well with varroa, there's that varroa hygienic bee. They do pretty well. The hygienic bees do well with some of these other problems. Look in that direction. If you're raising your own queens, again, go back to adapted to your location. If you're raising your own queens, that's something you're going to want to be selecting for. Efficient producers. Goes back to eggs per day. How many eggs is your queen laying, and when is she laying them? If she's like my Russian queen, I missed the whole maple flow. Totally. They slept through it totally. There were 8 bees in that box, maybe more. But so if I need an early flow, if I need bees that are going to take advantage of an early flow, Russians aren't it. So when is your flow? build your population before your flow instead of on your flow, and you're going to make a lot more honey. Know when your flow is and when your bees are going to wake up and start producing more bees, and you're going to do a lot better and well behaved. If you've got bees in town, you know this is cardinal rule number one. They got to play nice. Because if they don't, you've got neighbors who are going to be on your case. So, but you know, I hate wearing a bee jacket. And I go out there on a hot day, I want as little protection on as possible. I got a veil that almost isn't there. And that's, if my bees give me a hard time and I can't wear that veil, those bees go away. It's not fun. I enjoy working bees and I like making honey, but I'm not going to go out there and hurt because of it. I want bees that are nice. So I'm encouraging you to have, because you can have bees that produce just as much honey that are meaner and snot than mine, which are kittens. I like bees that are kittens. This came out of the University of Wisconsin, which used to be a powerhouse in beekeeping. And an average queen in a great colony is still going to do better than the best queen in the world in a colony that isn't doing anything because you're not taking care of it or because something's going on that you missed. So this is kind of comes down to how well is your queen going to do? How well is the colony she's in? And you'll do better. Pest management. I said varroa. We all know that. You got to deal with varroa. I should say end of story, because it is. You got to deal with varroa. Here's the challenge with varroa, and it's a moving target. It's been a moving target for 30 years. Is not only is it varroa, but it's the viruses. And the viruses are escalating. There's more of them in your colony now than there were 20 years ago, and they're more virulent now than they were yesterday. So not only dealing with varroa, but dealing with the viruses. But to deal with the viruses, you got to deal with varroa. There's has been over the years a lot of talk on thresholds. How many varroa can you have in your colony and still thrive? And I've seen it go from 20 to 5. And the commercial people in California now that are staying in business and thriving, it's 1. Any time of the year, 1. You've got 1 varroa in your colony. Remember, that 1 is one varroa per 100 bees, which is only 20% of the varroa population in your colony. So you're looking at 5 varroa per 100 bees really that are in your colony that you're going to have to deal with somewhere down the line. 1. You do the etherol or you do the alcohol wash or whatever it is that you're doing. I've stepped back from sticky boards. They make you feel good, but they're not telling you much of a story. You gotta have a better number than what sticky boards are telling you, and alcohol or etherol is a better story. And you do the quarter cup, half cup of bees. It's about 300, and you shake the heck out of them in alcohol, and you count the mites. And if you've got more than 1, now's the time to move. What are you going to do? Well, there's a lot we're going to talk about. There's a lot of stuff that you can do that isn't going to contaminate your wax. Hard chemicals are going to contaminate your wax, but at the same time, you got to do something. It may be hard chemicals because it came out 7, and now that colony is almost dead and doesn't know it yet. There's all the other things, fall broods and nosemas. Nosemas have been tricky, and I don't know that they have a handle on nosema yet. Every time I read a new paper that's out on nosema, they're telling me a little bit different story. This is Serrani. Nosema apis is pretty much not in the picture anymore. And Nosema serrani, and it's building, and you're seeing problems later in the summer rather than the spring or late winter when Nosema apis used to be a problem. And I had supper with Tom Webster last night, who probably knows more about nosema than anybody, and they just haven't got it figured out. They'll take a sample from a colony and they'll look at these bees that were on the outside frame, and they'll count spores, and they'll have 7 to 10 million spores per bee. And then they'll take from the same colony 2 frames over, none. Now they're finding out that they think maybe nosema can infect larvae, which makes no sense because that's a gut disease, but it may be a place where nosema resides, and then when it gets fed, it gets transferred to another worker. So they haven't got nosema. Pay attention to this, because that story hasn't been told yet. and more is going on. Wax moth, small hive beetle, tracheal mites, we still have to deal with all of those. That's common sense, day-to-day stuff. But if you don't do it, it's going to come up and bite you. Anybody store supers outside in the summer? Stack them like this. You'll have wax moth, not many, and what they eat is the stuff you should have gotten rid of in the first place, the stuff that's 4 years old and black as the ace of spades. That's the stuff they go for. The new stuff, they're not going to bother. Light and air. Light and air. If you stack them in your garage, if you stack them outside under a lean-to, whatever it is, light and air. You want to try something? Take an old frame, throw it on your garage floor, leave it there for a month. Come back and take a look at it. The top of it will still be just as nice and clean, as pristine as it was when you threw it down there. Roll it over. What are you going to have? A mess. Light and air. That's what's up. You don't need chemicals for wax moth, period. Skunks and bear. Skunks up off the ground. Bear, big tough fence. Big tough fence. That'll probably solve that problem. Pest management, you got to do it. But you do it with your cats for fleas. You do it with your chickens for all of the diseases they get. And you got to do it with bees. I go both ways with control swarming. If you're going to be a beekeeper and you want to manage and you want to make honey and you want to be a good beekeeper, then you're going to control swarming. If you're one of those people that like repopulating the natural population of bees out in the world, then you don't have to control swarming and life gets a lot simpler. You don't make nearly as much honey, but you're putting bees back. Anyway, all of those things, you know swarm control. Swarm control starts late September for next spring when you're making splits to overwinter. That's also good for varroa control. Perfect for varroa control. You're solving two problems at once. But that's when swarm control starts. So anticipate population growth, provide room in advance, all of the things that the books say, and they all kind of work, but you got to do them. You got to be out there when it's raining. You got to be out there when it's cold. You got to be out there. You got to be out there. It kind of comes down to that. Safe environment. I say keep your equipment in perfect condition, and the simple way to look at that is, are your boxes nailed together and square? That's the obvious one. But is your equipment in good shape? Are your top bars solid? And just all of the fundamental stuff that you should have been looking at last winter when you didn't have anything else to do is keeping your equipment in good shape. Clean wax. That's the big one. If you've been following this story about what's in wax in the last 4 or 5 years, you wouldn't put foundation in your colony. And that's what I'm saying to do. Don't put foundation in your colony. Use plastic foundation. The stuff that is being sold by all of the vendors over there, the stuff that you've got, if you're treating with any of the chemicals, the stuff is not safe for bees. It'll kill queens, it'll kill bees, it'll slow down your colony. We've taken looks at random samples of wax coming into the root company because beeswax is what we live and die on. We have to have beeswax. Millions of parts per billion, which should scare you. Don't use foundation. Put plastic foundation in your colony and switch it out after 2, maybe 3 years if you don't treat. The agricultural chemicals that are coming back in are almost as bad, but the stuff that beekeepers are putting in is worse. It's the worst stuff you can put in your colony. And I say that very carefully because that's what you learned. That's what we all grew up on, is wax foundation. But wax foundation is not good stuff anymore. We have fouled our nest, and now we have to live with it. Isolated from other bees. This goes 2 ways. One is your neighbor as good a beekeeper as you are? Probably not, right? And as a result of that, he's sharing all of his problems with you. And all of the varroa and all of the other diseases and all of the stuff that can go wrong in a hive, he's sharing with you because your bees are over there taking advantage of his sick colonies, bringing it home and spreading the wealth. The other problem is migratory beekeeping. Where is that Where is that guy from Florida setting his bees down to make a honey crop in your backyard? If you're raising queens, that's a bad thing. That's bad enough, but Africanized bees, who knows what he's got? Small hive beetle. Migratory beekeeping is becoming an issue, more of an issue, because they've got different stuff down there than we have up here, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. Africanized bees aren't going to have to migrate. We're putting them on trucks and sharing them with the rest of the world. Very fine, thank you. And it's only going to get worse. So if you know of migratory beekeeping, know where they go, so you can get your bees out of there. It's sad. It's like agriculture pesticides. If a farmer's going to spray, we have to move our bees, right? We have to do something so they can spray. Why is that? Why do we have to move? Why don't they stay over on their side of the fence? It's the same thing with migratory bees. Why do we have to protect ourselves from these trespassers? Do I sound a little angry? And that's avoid pesticides. You know, and it's hard to do, and it's getting harder to do. And I don't know the answer to that, but if you can get 5 miles away from anything that's ever going to be sprayed or has been seed treated, get 5 miles away, because it's going to be a problem. Keep good records, that goes without saying, but you know, I have the best records for May you have ever seen. By July, I can't even find the book. So don't use me for an example. But good records go back, will save your butt 100 times 5 years from now when you go to try something or you go to get something from somebody. And have extra equipment. If your life depends on putting bees on a truck in the middle of the night and taking them over to some apple orchard someplace and your truck breaks, what do? Know what to do. Know the guy to call in the middle of the night and say, can I borrow your truck, or can you come over? And it's the same, no matter what it is, your extractor, anything that you use, know where you can get another one right now. If bees are putting food on your table, you got to have it. So be able to go and get another one right now. Enough room at the right time, enough room for bees to brood. Nectar. You ever thought about nectar? When bees come back to the colony with a load of nectar, they give it to a house bee who takes it upstairs, adds some enzymes to it, takes it upstairs and hangs it in a cell. But they don't fill that cell up with nectar. They only put a little bit in there. And then they'll move to the next cell, and then they'll move to the next cell, and then they'll move to the next cell, and pretty soon they're running out of cells to put nectar in because you don't have enough boxes on that hive. You planned for boxes for honey, not for nectar. You added a super for honey, but there's enough nectar coming in that you could have added another box. They're not going to use it because they're going to condense it, and by this time tomorrow, it will be honey. Maybe the day after tomorrow. But in the meantime, if there's no place to put nectar, the bees are going to quit foraging. You've missed some honey. Think about adding boxes for nectar and see if it doesn't make a difference. I keep doing that, don't I? Which way am I going here? There we go. Nectar. Add room for nectar and see if it doesn't make a little bit of a difference. Not a lot of difference. You're not going to make 8 more boxes of honey, but you might make a half a box of honey. And if bees are putting food on your table, a half a box of honey is a lot of money. And honey and pollen, of course. You got to have enough room for honey. If your honey supers are full, they're going to quit foraging, flat out. And you've missed part of the crop. And predicting how much bees, and this has to do a lot with the flow. What is your main flow? What's blooming when? And how is it going? Following growing degree days. And okay, growing degree says this is going to bloom about then. 3 days from now, I'm going to be out of town. I got to go to a bee meeting, so I better get my boxes on now because it's by the time I get back, I'm going to have missed a full day of that honey flow, according to growing degree days. 1 full day, you got 2 weeks. That's 1/14 of your crop. So knowing what's going to bloom when and being able to predict that, and then doing management activity that accommodates that for both you and the bees makes a lot of sense. There it is. Cheapest insurance and the best medicine you can find. Enough good food all of the time for every bee in the bunch. We way underfeed our bees. Way underfeed our bees. Both protein and carbohydrates. And if you're watching the honey flow and suddenly it shuts off, even for a day, well, we've got food stored. Well, maybe you just harvested. Well, do you know? And that's the question. Do you know? Is there enough good food in there to feed all of the baby bees that are in that colony for 3 days? They've been going hand to mouth. Everything they bring in, they're storing some, but they're feeding because they're growing population, because your queen is laying 2,400 eggs a day. And suddenly you get 5 days of rain. Is there enough food coming on to make sure that all of the babies in that colony get all of the food that they need? If they're not, you need to be on top of it. You need to be feeding. Because otherwise you get this dip. And you've got a bunch of bees in this dip, a whole generation of bees in this dip that suddenly are a little bit starved, a little bit damaged. And it's only a few, and that queen's laying 2,400 eggs a day, and that's only a few, and it probably won't make much difference. But what if it was you? You're a litter of puppies that you're taking care of. One of your kids. It's not much, but it's a little. And if you're on top of it and you know what's going on in the colony, you know what's going on outside, and you know the population growth, you're going to be there with that protein patty and that sugar syrup before it happens. And they're just going to go right, there won't be that dip. Avoid stress. I wish it was that simple. For any of it. Don't nurse failing colonies, join small healthy colonies. A small colony is always struggling. It never catches up. It's under stress all of the time. To get enough kids, to get enough food, to have enough heat at night, it's always join it with a larger colony. If it's not sick, join it with a larger colony. It's the bees that you're joining to that colony are going to be immediately released from some stress, and you've got one less colony to take care of that you've been nursing all this time. Join it to another colony. Give them a break and give yourself a break. Don't waste time on dinks. And here's a dink, and that's kind of what this is, a small, healthy colony that I just know she's going to be okay. She'll turn it around. Ever have one of those? That's a good queen. She's so pretty. I know don't waste your time. Give the bees in that box a break. Join them to a small colony. Take your losses in the fall. That goes back 200 years, but it's still true. Don't try and get a sick colony through the winter. They're going to be dead. And you have spent time and money and resources trying to save a colony that was dead in September and didn't know it yet. Be proactive with food, queens, medications, and room. Common animal husbandry. I could say this with my cats, my dogs, my ducks, the goat next door, same exact thing. But you got to do it. Winter well. You guys have even more winter here than I do in Ohio. I learned bees up in northern Wisconsin. So if you ever go to a Wisconsin football game, you'll see that the football players have a big white W on the side of their helmet that stands for winter. And so I learned wintering pretty well up in Wisconsin. Enough food store. How much? You got a bottom board, you got 2 deeps with frames and bees and brood and honey. Inner cover and a cover. How much should that weigh? 150 pounds. Give that man a medal. That's what it should weigh. If it weighs less, you got a problem. You're missing something. Maybe the bottom board, but probably not that. Probably you're missing enough stored food. How I do it is this. This is just so brain dead simple. You know the old heft thing? You know, if you can't lift it, it's good enough for winter. Well, what I can't lift now is a lot less than what I couldn't lift 30 years ago. So I got one of those, weigh the front, weigh the back, put the numbers together, you got the weight of the colony. It's just real simple. It takes one person 1 minute to do that. And then you're not guessing. If it's 180 pounds, you can move on. If it's 140 pounds, mark it. You got to do something to it. You got to get food into it. You got probably honey, certainly, or carbohydrates, and probably pollen also. You've got to get that food in there. And superior population. It goes back to that eggs today. Now, when you're measuring eggs per day, your queen, the best queen in the world, is going to be laying more eggs per day today than she is in October, right, or September. She's ramping down rapidly. So if you measure eggs per day in October and she comes up with 200, are you going to get rid of her? Probably not. She's probably doing exactly what she should be doing. But you still need a superior population of bees that were born back in August and September. That's when winter really starts for the population of bees going into winter, is in August. And that's what you need to do. That's when you're looking at your queen, is how's she doing in August, because that's going to tell me how they're going to be doing in February. So this really makes a lot of sense. Take care of the bees that take care of the bees that go into winter. Think of it like this. If your grandparents are sick, they're not taken care of, they got fed, they got varroa, they got virus, whatever, their generation isn't going to be able to take care of your parents. Same thing. Even if you go in and you clean up the varroa in your grandparents' generation and you get rid of it, you still got damaged bees taking care of your parents' generation. Damaged bees, they're not producing the enzymes, they don't have enough food, they're damaged. They in turn can't take care of the generation that goes into winter. So because you didn't do something with your grandparents, the bees going into winter are damaged without, you have no say in it because they're already damaged because of what went on way back when. Take care of the bees that take care of the bees that go into winter. And you're going to be a lot better off. What time am I supposed to quit?
10 after.
10 after. Good, we got time. I say this, extraordinary ventilation. I use screen bottom boards for wintering, not for summer. Although they're open a little bit in the summer. I like a breeze in the colony all summer long. And I pull out that thing about that much in the back, and I leave it open year round. I like ventilation in the colony. That breeze going right up the back of the colony, and not one bee has ever complained to me about it, so I think I must be doing it right. But extreme ventilation, and you're going to do better. Has anybody here ever used a thermal imaging camera on a beehive? I went to a thing a couple of weeks ago. It's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of stuff. This is what you're looking at right here. Where is you're looking at any time of the year because it's going to be hot inside the colony. You can tell where the cluster is. You can tell how big it is. You can probably tell how healthy it is by how warm it is. This is going to change keeping bees. Or it's changed it for me already. It's going to change checking bees in almond orchards. You can go out there and you take a pallet of 4 and you just look at all 4 and that one's dead. No heat at all. Don't even have to take the cover off. So I'm marking you down 25% off that pallet. You got a truck going by, loaded up to go to California. Take one picture, boom, that one's dead, that one's dead, that one's dead. Don't even have to take the covers off. Don't even have to take the net off. And you can tell this is going to change things. And you'll be able to see you'll be able to see where the cluster is. How often have you seen 2 clusters in a colony, both dead? And if you get warning of that ahead of time, you can do something about it. You can get them back together with this kind of information. This is one of those insulating things on top of a colony. There's a lot of ways to do it, but they all work. You have warm air rising, it hits your cold inner cover, it condenses and the water drips back down. If you've got insulation on top of your inner cover is warm, the warm air rises up and goes out your vent instead of condensing on the bottom of your inner cover. Extreme ventilation and insulation. And provide protection, you know, a windbreak. That goes a long way. Just 4 bales of hay. You wouldn't believe the difference it makes on this temperature fluctuation inside of a colony if you just get rid of the wind. And the temperatures, it's incredible. We did a lot of work in Wisconsin on daytime fluctuations, wind breaks, no wind breaks, wrapped, unwrapped, all of those things. And a wind break, and you got almost this. That's what the bees need. Remember that stress thing? Avoid stress. So, superior population, good protection, wind breaks, wrapping. Any wrapping is good. Any wrapping is better than none. And I strongly suggest that you consider doing so. The best stuff that I've found for wrapping is that stuff sold by B&B Honey. And it's that plastic with a real thin layer of insulation underneath it. And it comes in a roll, and you can staple it to your colony, or you can tie it on. You know, it's easy to apply, easy to take off, and it does everything a wrap needs to do. It provides another additional windbreak layer, and because it's black, it absorbs heat, and it'll warm up the colony inside a little bit. It's cheap and it's easy to use. So if you're going to wrap, I'm sorry?
How long have you had it?
I'm sorry?
How long have you had it?
How long have I had it?
Yeah. Mine's going on like 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, if you're somewhat careful, I staple mine, so I'm kind of hard on mine. But
corners are bad, but after the rest of it's not bad at all.
Yep, it's good, it's cheap, it's easy to use, and it's one more level of protection. It's one more level of avoiding stress. And take care of the bees that go into winter, and that's August up here. That's when you need to be making sure your bees are healthy.
You said the name of the company was Better Bee?
B&B.
B&B Honey. They advertise in the journals.
Right. We're in Minnesota.
Yep.
Can you over-insulate?
Can you over-insulate? You can't over-insulate if you've got ventilation. We had the four-square method that they developed in Canada. The guy that developed that was a student at the University of Wisconsin when I was there, and he developed that four-pack, and we had bees that were so well insulated they never clustered in the winter. But they had ventilation. So if you've got ventilation, yeah, you're going to eat a lot of food. Yeah. Know that going in. Instead of 100 pounds, he had 150, 160 pounds of honey on every colony, but they were happy bees come spring.
Quick question, you're evaluating your bees, you're in there December, first week of December. I think the jury's still out, Kim, on it, but I mean, I was seeing drones in December, first week of December. Turns out those hives were extremely strong coming out, but what's your take on that?
They probably bees get rid of drones in the fall because of what? Resources. If you've got a really good, strong, healthy colony, there's less inclination to get rid of the drones come fall. I mean, we got lots of food, guys, stick around. You know, it's when we don't have lots of food, guys, get out. And, you know, the retirement program stinks, but on a good, strong colony, you'll often see overwintered drones. I don't know how good they are the second year when it comes to mating. I don't know if that's ever been mentioned, but they're still eating, so.
So you would use it as a basis somewhat?
Well, it's certainly one of the things in the plus column. Yep. Food safety shouldn't be the last rule, but it actually should be the first. Prevent harvest contamination. Keep your crop covered when you're transporting it. Don't overheat your honey. Is honey honey if it doesn't have pollen in it?
Yes.
There are people who say no. I know. That's another story that hasn't been told yet. It'll be interesting to see how that comes out. Make sure that your moisture and store in clean containers and all of these things, fundamental food stuff, whether it's you're growing tomatoes, potatoes, or honey, this all applies. Do no harm. I think this is the do no harm stuff that we can easiest avoid. Hard chemicals for Varroa. There's too many other things out there that we can be doing to keep Varroa in check. You're never ever going to get rid of all of them, probably. But boy, if you can keep that level down to 1 or less every time you're checking, you're going to be doing okay. It's the virus. And if you don't have a lot of adult Varroa in your colony, you're not going to have a lot of virus. And that's the trick. All of these other things, enough food and all these other diseases under control are going to help. And they're going to help your bees be healthy. But Varroa, if they're 100% everywhere else, then Varroa become less of a problem. And the viruses that go with them do no harm. But you just knew there was going to be more, didn't you? How about some beekeeper rules? And that's continuing education. You're all here. You've got the first step. You've gotten past getting a magazine and reading a book and going to your county meeting. You've stepped up. Advanced skills. You take a queen rearing course. Whatever. You learn to pollinate for a living. Some kind of, again, association membership. That used to be a problem. I don't think it is anymore. Boy, I tell you, associations, yours at home doing okay? You got enough chairs? That's getting to be the problem, is there's more people than most of us are used to. Be an officer, but that's the problem. Raise your hand. The world is run by the people who show up. Raise your hand and have some say in what's going on in your part of the world. You were just raising your hand, okay. Good for you. The next thing is teach a class. Step up and teach a class. You know a lot. You'll know more after this week than you did before and take some of that home and share it with all of the rest of the people who couldn't be here. Maybe it's just giving a 1-hour talk once, but there we go. But teach a class. Be a mentor. That's tough being a mentor because somebody's demanding your time when you least want to share it, usually. But if your club sets up, our club has struggled with this over the years. I think we've got it to the point where there's a set of guidelines for the mentor and the mentee, and if you follow them, most mentors are able to help when they need the help, and most mentees are respectful of that boundary, and it works pretty well for both, and we've got a pretty good program, but it took a long time to get it set up. When can you call me? You can't call me after supper, or when shouldn't you call? Don't call me during the day, but get those kinds of guidelines set up. When can I come over? Well, it's raining. You can't come over today. So you need to wrestle with those things. But how many here had a good mentor? And it really made a difference, didn't it? A big difference. So rather than struggle on your own and you go out there and you're in the backyard and your wife is way over there looking, that guy's nuts. And you're trying to figure out what's going on inside this colony. And you don't know, and there's nobody to turn to and ask, or there's nobody to call on your cell phone and ask. So I'm seeing something I've never seen it. What the heck's going on? So be a mentor if you can. Beekeeper health. Do you know how to use a EpiPen kit? Learn. You'll save somebody's life someday. I've had the unique opportunity of having to do it twice, and I knew what to do before the first time, and it makes a difference. You don't panic. You don't run screaming into the night. You do what you're supposed to do, and that person will be here tomorrow. How to stop shopping. How to stop robbing. Do you know how to stop robbing? You got 4 colonies in your backyard, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. You got neighbors over at the pool getting stung. You got the guy across the street getting stung, and everybody's screaming at you. How do you stop that right now? Know how to do that. Here's a way to do it. There's 2 ways to do it. One is you close every colony. You seal them up tight as a drum. All of the bees that are out can't get back in. They're going to stand on the landing board. Nobody can get out to continue robbing. That's pretty fast. And that's usually what I would recommend. That's probably the best that you can do. The other one is to open everybody up. And then everybody is liable. Everybody is vulnerable. And you will center the activity. Second choice.
When you say close up, robbing in our area happens in August, so I think there needs to be or at least I feel like we need to talk about briefly how you close it up, because you don't use duct tape.
If I've got neighbors getting stung, I don't care how I close it up.
Really?
That's the kind of robbing I'm talking about. When you're out in your backyard and you've got a 1-week colony and you're harvesting or something, and they may be bothering the dog, but that's it. But I'm talking the full-blown, oh my God, we're all going to die robbing situation. That you have a life-threatening situation. Can you stop it now? Can you kill a colony? I'm going to ask this question. Can you kill a colony right now if you had to? If you've got a colony that a life-threatening situation with a colony, could you kill it right now? In Florida, this is what they do. This is what they teach you. Every bee yard has a great big large leaf litter plastic bag in it, laying underneath the colony somewhere. You put that over the colony, you shut up the colony, you put it over the colony, you tip it over, and you seal the bag, and the colony is dead. You can do it right now, and if you have to save lives, that's what you do. And it works. It works really well on Africanized bees and every other kind of bees. Does your spouse know where every one of your bee yards is? Could she drive there? Could he drive there? And when you don't answer the cell phone because you didn't come home for dinner, does she know where to send the people to get the body? And that happens. So you have a map. Someplace have a map. The Jones yard is, and they know where to drive to get the body. So if you don't answer your cell phone, do they know where to go? And this is the one that we talked about, how to save lives. You can do that. Get one of those get one of those bags, throw it under a colony, and just leave it there. And if you have to do it, it's there. And you could do it. It could be done. And I still got some time, I think. I think we're done. Yes?
I have one of those meters that's not colonies. How would you get rid of it?
I would do what?
I have one of those meters that's not colonies. How would you take it out?
If it wasn't being a life-threatening situation and I just wanted to get rid of a bunch of bees, I got 2 5-gallon pails of soapy water. I take the cover off and I dump them in right now.
No, it's way back out of nowhere, but we have to put on 2 suits to approach it.
Yeah.
Do I get rid of the queen? Do I re-queen?
How long do you want to put up with meter and snot?
One more time.
Okay. You know, I can depopulate a colony in a hurry if you have to, and that's the way to do it. If you can go in, if you can actually put on enough bee suits to go through that colony and find the queen and get rid of her, their temperament will probably change by tomorrow. And you probably, I say carefully, you probably won't have that problem anymore if you can get the queen. It's the defying death act that you have to do to get rid of her.
But would you re-queen or would you let them build another with her genetic?
Oh, you want another queen just like the one you had?
No, but I think there's some different drones.
I would get another queen from somebody who can work bees in their bathing suit.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, think if you're going with their genetics, you're gambling.
yeah.
Anything else?
I received 8 EpiPens free.
I'm sorry?
I received 8 EpiPens for free
Uh-huh.
on Mylan. There's a coupon on Mylan Pharmaceuticals EpiPen, and you take a very brief survey, and you bring that coupon. I went to CVS, and each prescription comes with 2 EpiPens, and I got 4 of them, and I didn't pay a single penny.
That's because they're not cheap.
No, I know, they're like
Yeah, they're not cheap.
$6.
Yeah.
There you go. Take notes.
LAN, Mylan Pharmaceuticals. And I'm not allergic, but I just said that somebody could be allergic, and it was, I got 8 of them.
Do you use your insurance?
No.
You just got the survey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know there's a talking EpiPen?
Yeah, it's great.
I'm not surprised anymore.
Realistically, no.
Lots of emergency equipment comes with that. You know, pull the string and it'll tell you first do this and first do that. But I hadn't heard about the EpiPen. But get the talking one if you can.
Really? Probiotics. I keep seeing these popping up.
I don't know enough to comment.
Too new.
In theory, the theory sounds wonderful, doesn't it? I mean, everybody should be having more probiotics, including your chickens and your bees, and it makes sense because it's the stuff that makes you healthy. I don't know. I haven't seen good numbers. That doesn't mean it's,
So you've not personally tried anything, you're waiting to see what people are doing?
yeah. I'm carefully leery of things that come in bottles. And when somebody shows me, what's the feed additive out of Maryland? Mega Bee. I was leery, but that's really good stuff. And I recommend it. But until somebody shows me, I'm just careful. You know, would you give your chickens something? Would you give your chickens probiotics or your kids?
I haven't given anything, well, I don't need one more thing to write down or buy, you know, that's my thought. But if somebody after time says this is great, you know, I'll put Honeybee Healthy in my.
That's what I meant, not Mega Bee,
Yeah.
Honeybee Healthy, thank you.
I'll put that in,
Yeah.
but I haven't, you know, I see them buying it, I see them talking about it, but no, I don't,
We use that for the stuff.
can't charge another thing.
My wife's reading a book on good food, and we've been reading books on good food, and she has out of this book comes a saying, and I don't know where you lie in here, but if God didn't make it, don't eat it. And that's kind of where I am with myself and my bees. And it's got to be, I got to know that it's going to do them good rather than just do good for the guy that's selling it to me. And you know, it's conservative and cautious, but if I wouldn't give it to my kids, I'm going to give it to my bees.
You said one of the steps about take your losses in the fall. Does that mean just kill that hive? If it's already diseased, it's weak, you
sometimes. If they're just, if they're riddled with something, yeah. But if they're just weak because you've had a bad queen and she just hasn't been laying and there's not enough bees, join it with another colony, and that way you got one strong instead of one medium and one dead. Do you have to go to another meeting, right?
Eventually.
So you can all go. Thank you.